All right. Jumping right back into things with game 4 for today. We're going to have Burning Core running back up to bat. Excuse me. Versus AXZ Gaming. Now, a little bit of a surprising turn of events for game 1 is that AXZ were able to pull out a win over Sengoku Gaming. So, definitely coming back from our 2-week off season, swinging hard, which I love to see from a team that was prior to literally today 0-8 in the split and very rough early parts of the game. And you might be able to chalk up parts of it to the online atmosphere. We are online for both today and tomorrow, which is week 5 and 6 of the LJL respectively. That being said, I don't want to take the accomplishment away from AXZ. I felt like that was one of the games where we watched not only AXZ just have an outstanding jungle performance over Blank, even of all junglers. Just Blank felt useless. The bear that he ended up getting just kind of felt in hibernation for most of that game. And for AXZ, I'm loving to see that they're protecting their early game advantages. They're usually pretty good about getting first blood. They're usually the ones getting the first couple kills, first couple objectives. The problem always came in the mid-game transition and then moving forward from there, where they would just let their entire lead slip away from them and they would go down hard. In the game against a team like Sengoku, if you're holding on to your lead and you're making it too hard to pull out from under you, it's a good sign for your stats going forward. And call them crazy, but a playoff opportunity still on the table for them. Now that said, they're gonna run up against Burning Core. And from what we just saw in the last game, you really need to be careful about what tools you are giving over to Burning Core, because the story of that last game was not only Burning Core using their comp as effectively as they could, they were using all of their tools to peak efficiency. There were so many times that the Temper Fate would land and then immediately Ash Arrow hits onto the Aphelios, followed up by a hook shot. Then you have enough time for both Yu-Gi-Oh and once on the Kha'Zix to be in there, just like so much burst potential and well-coordinated burst potential that sometimes you don't see in an online environment. I love seeing that from Burning Core. I love that coordinated play. And if you can keep your team fights going like that, if you can have everyone on this well-oiled machine, Burning Core might have their opportunity to sneak into that play-in spot as well. They are kind of the favorites of the lower-rung teams, of the bottom 4 that would be able to make it. And in my honest opinion, I do believe that Burning Core have kind of come out with the better end of the a lot of the early ends of the split. They've kind of been a consistently... They're doing about as well as you would expect. I would think slightly under par from what you'd expect coming out of the spring split, but I don't think Burning Core has had any losses to teams that they shouldn't. They even got a win over CGA, which was very important for their standings and also affects CGA going forward, as that's a loss that when you look at it on paper, you're like, well, of course, CGA should be the better team. CGA is higher on the standings. They were higher on the standings than the year prior. But CGA kind of has this off record of losing to Burning Core. Burning Core just kind of have that player-to-player matchup just apparently down and really kind of shut down CGA in a lot of opportunities. And that's a great thing for Burning Core, is if you know there's one team, you have their number, and you're starting to just dish out or just starting to eat up some wins on the lower end teams, speaks great for your playoff standings. And as it stands, AXZ can't afford to be giving up any wins if they want to have a chance at making a break for these playoff spots. All of that being said, I do think that if you're asking me right now, before I see draft, before I see anything else, I'd want to give the edge to AXZ. And the only reason I would, or the reason I would kind of be going on that bender is I think AXZ plays the early game very solid, and they cleaned up their mid game very, very well, if their last game is anything to speak of it. And the thing I commonly criticize Burning Core for is having a weaker early game and losing a lot of gold to things like turret plates when you rotate for objectives, losing early objective fights. And if a team like AXZ is able to not only protect their not only acquire their early leads, but then protect them going forward, it puts that much higher execution barrier on Burning Core to be able to pull out a win. That end, I do always love an underdog story, so we'll have to see how things play out from here. Now, going to see a couple familiar bans right away. Lulu going to be banned away, but the Echo ban is, of course, given over to Once and Yu-Gi-Oh! Both of them competent Echo players, but Once definitely had one of the standout performances on Echo Jungle. As Burning Core going to be banning away the Zoe, Twisted Fate, and Set, all reaching the ban table. And I'm kind of curious because this is once again Aphelios and Ashe both being left up, and it's Burning Core's decision which of the two they want, or if they'll be returning to things like the Lethality Varus or other potential options. And this is the inverse, is before we saw the Aphelios being prioritized and it got countered, and Burning Core likely know that they can play into, excuse me, I just banged my elbow on the desk. Burning Core probably know how to play, or are feeling very confident in their play into Aphelios, and if AXZ were watching the last game, they should know that firsthand. Thinking about the bear, we have not seen the greatest bear performances so far today, but AXZ is going to be drafting that one up. Does give you a little bit of flex potential. That is sort of the benefit, is the Volibear posture's very similar to Set in terms of draft, where while you don't have exactly the same amount of lockup potential, you are a bit better of a jungler than Set, and does offer a little bit more in that department, as well as sieging turrets and things like that. So does offer potential for AXZ gaming here, and reserves a bit of flex opportunity while they do lock themselves in the Varus. I like the draft so far from AXZ. There's a lot of kind of differing options that you can move. You can have the Varus even be an on-hit Varus if you kind of want to end up in the team fighting aspect of things. So Thresh likely will be locked in here, or at least will be locking in their support pick, going even with the picks of Burning Core, except for that flex potential, like we mentioned, of the Volibear. Is Once is going to run it right back on the Kha'Zix. Feeling confident in his performance so far. And looking to run this one back onto AXZ this time. So Camille is going to be banned away from Ray in the top lane this time. Not trying to give Burning Core the exact same comp that they had in the game prior, but a lot of similar phases coming out for Burning Core. Burning Core eyes up their next ban. They can kind of pinch away at the top lane pool to hopefully set up an advantage for Burning Core there. And this is sort of the play out read of how the draft will go. You'll likely be seeing AXZ immediately drafting up their top laner on day day one. Will be likely picking that one up on this these R4 pickup. And so Burning Core will have that advantage. So they're going to be focusing a little bit more on the top side of things to hopefully refer to that counter pick once they see which of the two Volibear or their pick left to decide is heading up to the top side. As Jace is also going to be banned away here. Not a whole lot of poke potential, but I do like that you are banning it away. Really needed to be considered when you're looking at a Varus who can still go that lethality route and offer a lot of potential damage output. So the Zir is going to be locked in here, so AXZ is opting into that mid laner right away. And I do kind of like the Azir pickup here. It might mean that we're seeing the Varus pivot into the lethal, or excuse me, into the on-hit build, and they might be looking for team fight potential, as they can look to draft up something like an Ornn on this R5. But Burning Core locking in the Galio, something that they can pair along nicely with the Kha'Zix, gives him what we were mentioning earlier when the Galio was banned in the last game, of very high roam potential, and that's sort of Burning Core's MO in this one, is when you draft a Kha'Zix, you want something that has mobile mid potential or good gank setup, as Ray's going to be bringing back the Darius, a fan favorite of Ray himself, as he's going to lock that one in. Been a minute since we've seen Ray on the Darius. I believe we haven't seen a Darius, I don't know if we've seen one in the summer split at all. I know we've seen one in the spring split. We saw a couple, specifically in Ray Farkey's hands, but with Unyan gonna be drafting drafting up that Kennen for the top side there, likely looking for that all-in team fight style for AXZ here, which will likely mean that Burning Core will have their fair share of early game potential, but as things progress forward, we'll see if AXZ Gaming are able to find the fights that they're looking for. The thing that worries me is this is a similar comp to what we saw earlier, where you don't have a long-range engage on the side of AXZ Gaming, and it doesn't allow you to set up Volibear or Kennen to get in deep and utilize their kits effectively. So that's the worry that I have when I'm looking at AXZ's side of things. On the side of Burning Core, this is a comp you executed on once before. You don't have all of the same tools, but will you be able to execute in similar fashion? Will Yuhi and Proud still be able to find mass amount of value? And one thing I look at, especially when you're talking about Proud, who was just such a standout performance in the last game, is running up against Corporal. I don't think Corporal, even on Leona, but more as a player, has that same intuition and same consistency in setting up plays for his team that they are all on the same page about. We had seen in the past, and something that we've criticized Corporal of, is a lot of times his plays look a little bit disconnected from the rest of the team. And now, when you're looking at Corporal on a champion that, like Leona, who is all in, and there's no reverse on a champion like Leona. You are all in, and you are going to either find a fight, or you're just going to die solo. So I worry a little bit for Corporal in this one, but I trust that AXZ going forward have a plan. They have enough team fighting tools to set up the fight how they want. But we just saw Burning Core executing on team fights as best they can. It will remain to be seen if AXZ can follow suit on that performance. And we'll wait for things to get started up here. After draft, I'm a little bit torn. I honestly believe giving Ashe Bard back over to Burning Core might have been, if Burning Core are to win this one, I do believe it's gonna be the Bard Ashe once again. I think that Burning Core have just absolutely demonstrated such prowess on those two, and Proud was just all over the map making plays. Things like Tempered Fate and Crystal Arrow are just such huge disruptors to team fights. All of that being said, I really like AXZ's comp. It's very hard for the members of Burning Core to engage on. But on top of that, if Burning Core get caught in some of the situations that they were in the last game, where they had their members sort of fanned out in a radius around Rascal Jester like they had, Rascal Jester didn't have the same engage tools or the same team fight tools that AXZ now have. So I get a little bit worried about if you kind of set up in this like radius around, are AXZ Gaming going to just be able to Proto Belt into Cannon R into, you know, okay, this one section of the radius is now gone, but we still retain things like a Zero Wall and just honestly Volibear's big beefy body on top of like Tempered Fate to stall out the rest of the circle. So Burning Core doesn't have the same opportunity to execute the fights in the same way, but a lot of these similar tools, and we'll see how they adjust things going forward into this game.
特にバードが食らってしまうともう結構どうしようもないのかなという面はありますよね。また今回お互いクレンズは AD キャリーが持ってますから、まあそこの差し合い、サマナスペルの破壊し合いというのも
And I do think that well, we have a little bit of time. Oh, hold that thought.
LJL 2020サマースプリットウィーク5ゲーム4バーニンコア vs アクシズの試合スタートです。
And as we start things up here, fairly traditional runes and fairly expected runes all the way across. We do see day one is going for the team fight oriented on hit version of Varus. And I'm a little bit worried to think that that Lethality Varus might be falling to the wayside of the LJL. It was never actually that popular in the summer split. It did get a lot of ban attention, but overall it kind of felt like the LJL weren't executing on the Lethality Varus to its fullest potential, and the teams that you did see get it were never well equipped to utilize it. That isn't to say that it does not have potential to be showing up, but it is a little bit worrying about Varus's overall attention in the drafts. That being said, I am always a fan of the on-hit. Varus does offer both of these teams some very hyped team fights that we'll hopefully be able to see them execute on. Looking at the drafts, Burning Core is a little bit in the favorite, and standings would agree with them. But one thing I do notice in this one, right off the bat, is that Hoglet is slightly behind on the clear this time around. He is going to be getting 3 off of his blue side alone, but Once is also rushing to that level 3. Where they go from there is really what's going to be the difference maker. And now, Hawkshot spawning out Hoglet does give a bit of information over to the side of Burning Core, and one thing I do think is worth focusing on when you're talking about both of these teams, and at least this first like 15-minute early game, is Once has not exactly postured very in the face of the enemy junglers. He's kind of taken a little bit more lax approach. He doesn't want to fall too far behind, so isn't scrapping with the Volibear as often as you might expect. And because of that posturing, I wonder if Hoglet is going to be able to pull out or pull through this game, as right now he has decent positioning for his lanes. Both junglers, no real gank opportunities, being on the wrong end of the lanes that are being shoved, but an engage comes out from Corporal here. Good chunk onto Proud, not a bad little bit of damage, but he has a couple shrines to help pick up some HP or healing from the aliens with the new Astro Bard skin. I do really enjoy the Astro skin line. I do really enjoy the aliens that come along with it. My favorite, of course, Astro Gnar. Holding the little alien in the splash art is adorable, but speaking of holding, Hoglet might be holding his ground here in the river bush. We'll be able to get away there from Proud, but that was a little bit of a hairy situation to be in. Is able to escape on that one. Is able to escape on that one with relative ease, and AXZ Gaming now are in a position where they can kind of just bide their time. They don't need to worry too much about taking engages that, like this, where Burning Core can kind of just easily escape. The overall positioning that Burning Core has, it's very hard for actually Leona specifically to find an engage into Bard, as most of the time when you're taking yourself, when you throw the E, you're putting yourself in a very set position that Proud is able to capitalize off of. So for the most part, you're going to be walking yourself into a stun almost consistently, and that's not a bad deal by any means, but we'll see how AXZ Gaming are able to posture through the rest of these ones, as there goes a shuffle onto Yu-Gi-Oh! Flash burn, but Hoglet's gonna match him flash for flash. No more CC left, but with Yu-Gi-Oh! Burning both of his summoners, not a bad deal, and flash retained by Garaidu is a good position to be in. He'll continue to try and grow a CS lead over Garaidu here. We'll see how things go for AXZ Gaming here, as a lot of vision control set up early on around this Ocean Drake. They have opportunity to be first up on this one, but it's a little bit risky. You can't afford to be soloing Drakes at this point in the game. It's just a little bit too hairy and takes just a bit too much time. And it's a little bit of an interesting trade where, with Unyan being level 6, you do have that team fight potential, and he does have teleport to make his way towards the bottom end of the map if a fight is to break out. But he doesn't have all the damage items that you would otherwise have on a cannon, so it makes it interesting. It makes for an interesting position where Unyan is not able to burst out anyone in a team fight, but does still offer enough of a team fight potential that they do feel comfortable taking this Drake. So Hawkshot's going to spot them out. It looks like Burning Core are wandering up here, seeing if they can get any amount of harass, but Drake's going to go down in time. There goes a Magical Voyage. They're going to jump over onto day one. Flashes out a little bit early, but not wanting to risk getting caught out there. Honestly, could have looked for a turn there, and I'm a little bit surprised they didn't, as day one did have did have his ultimate available, and that easily could have been a catch onto once, but AXZ taking the safe route there. Day one, it is his first day up to bat here in the summer split, so ends up turning away from that before things get too hairy. Kind of a hard look for when you do see a Kha'Zix jumping right at your face. It is a bit of a scary sight. But I honestly would have liked to have seen AXZ take a fight there. I'm not entirely sure. He did. Corporal even had exhaust available. Scorpio's looking for level 6 here. The ultimate's going to fly in onto Yuhi. That's going to be cleanse burned, and unless a Q snipe comes in from day one, but that's going to be Hoglet going in a little bit too deep as he's going to get the trade kill right back over. Over-eager Hoglet goes through the magical voyage and finds himself in a worse-for-wear position. And that's exactly what Day One was trying to avoid, where Day One was a little bit too safe. Hoglet goes a little bit too deep and ends up trading away his life, giving First Blood over to Once in the jungle. And that's going to be a nice little early advantage for him to be picking up. Now, AXZ aren't exactly in a terrible position based off of that one. They do have a bit of a CS lead in the mid lane to fall back on, and it's somewhat unavoidable. Playing a melee matchup into an Azir can be somewhat difficult. So Yu-Gi-Oh's just kind of weathering that storm in the mid lane for the most part. But as Burning Core starting up that Rift Herald on Vision, Hoglet might be finding himself a wandering bard here. Flash forward from Corporal. The knockback from the Azir wall is going to be good as Yu-Gi-Oh flies in, but Burning Core are going to make the call to back away in the end. Nice little pickup for AXZ Gaming. Trades for a Rift Herald on the other end of the map. I do like the look from Yu-Gi-Oh to make the call to utilize the ultimate to try and get in on that play. But ultimately, too little too late, and at this point Bard does not have nearly any resistance stats. We typically see a couple of the bards going for a little bit of extra HP so they don't get popped quite as easily. But Once looking for an opportunity onto Ray, might go for Flash Hook here. Once is going to be the one leading the charge. Ray not going in on that one just yet. Doesn't want to get stunned up under turret, and understandably so. While Unyan will live to see another day, or at least see the end of this wave. Ray thinking about sticking around for a play, or at least to shove one more lane. And while Unyan does not have teleport, he does have barrier up through Unsealed Spellbook, so it doesn't have the ability to teleport right back to the wave. So Ray is looking to see if he can make him miss a little bit of that CS there. While Yu-Gi-Oh, you do have plenty of magic resist as Galio. It's just going to try and brush off a bit of the damage from Garaidu. And this is a game you can kind of expect to be going towards the longer end of things, as AXZ will likely be looking for this team fight for a good while. And while we are just enjoying a little while longer of a lull state, we will see if we will go 4 for 4 on the Cloud Drakes in this game. It would be an impressive sight to see that, as Once is going to jump over the wall there, throw a little bit of damage at Hoglet, but ultimately just trying to stay back off of our ground as they're going to start up this Infernal Drake. AXZ can't really look for much with Garaidu in the mid lane. Hoglet really just going to throw his E over the wall there to try and see if he can get a lucky steal, as we have a different soul hitting the rift here today. Mountain Soul going to be winning out on that 50-50 and gracing us with a slightly more impactful soul, as Mountain Drake does a lot to invalidate members of Burning Core, but Garaidu's looking for an opportunity here. Hoglet throws the R forward the other way, and the shuffle from Garaidu's not going to find any targets, but That will mean that Yuhi was left out to dry. Flash just moments from cooldown, but not quite close enough. And Garaidu coming in off the teleport. Tried to just see if he can get an extra one scooped up there, but not quite going to land that one. We'll watch this one more time as this play kind of gets set up. It looks like Burning Court, you just want to cash in on the Rift Herald, but good call from Corporal just to make that turn immediately. AXZ recognize the play a little bit before it happens, and they're able to capitalize off of it effectively. He has really nowhere he can run, and not enough damage yet to deal with the bear by himself. Speaking of bears, Ray's showing us a little friendly bear of his own on the top side there. And this is sort of an interesting point from the side of AXZ Gaming, where having the kill and assist onto Garaidu is a great look for Azir getting online a little bit faster. And as we're kind of looking at the way things are shaping up, AXZ don't really need to be the early game team that we commonly associate them as. They don't need to be on this map 24/7. They don't need to be on and out the door early. They can kind of fall back on their team fight portion, because while Ray is going to kind of be a frontline on the side of Burning Core, Darius does suffer a bit of decay going into the later stages of the game, and it is about as tanky as Hoglet. But when you add all of the team fight tools and the shred that Garaidu and Day One are going to be able to provide, there's not a whole lot you can really do to stand up if you are Ray in this game, especially when you're going to be having to push past Garaidu just throwing an ultimate out and battering multiple members of Burning Core away. But the question will really be if Once is able to find a lot of value in sectioning off members. Anybody he's able to blow up would pay dividends, and it's not like there's a Lulu ult to save them this time, that all you got is the items on your back. As the top lane is remaining almost dead even for the most part. But the Rift Herald spawned up here means Burning Core has an opportunity at an objective. They are going to be starting that one up, and with Day One returning to the bot lane, he'll just be looking to shove that one in. Try and pressure for turret plates. You can see some pings coming out from him. He says, I just would like to farm, please do not bait me up there for that objective. Which is honestly a fine call to make. AXZ definitely punished the Rift Herald play from Burning Core the last time. They say give them another one. If they're not going to play out their Rift Heralds as effectively as they need to, we don't mind. Day One should be able to grab first turret here. And Hoglet showing up on this side of the map would be exactly signs of that they want to push for this last turret. They're going to try and do just that. Temper Fate and the Crystal Arrow are both on the menu, but Day One should just be able to secure that turret without any troubles. Corporal's going to throw the ultimate. Good sidestep from Yuhi not to get stunned, and that'll be enough for AXZ to take the call to back off of that one. Mountain Drake up in about 30. If they want to take a reset, now would be the time. Meanwhile, with Once on the opposite end of the map, he's trying to get a little bit of info on where Hoglet would be heading. He's going to go check over on his Krugs. He might be running into Hoglet here. Pings come out. They know where Once is, and they're going to maybe look for a dive onto Unyan, but seeing Hoglet running up at them, they know something's up, and they're not going to follow through on that play quite yet. And you can see some pings coming out towards the Mountain Drake instead, as Hoglet likely won't be spending a whole lot of time on the top side himself. Both teams feel fairly confident in fighting over this one. Teleport advantage still in Unyan's favor, so Ray Farkey does have to book it down there now, as AXZ first up on the Drake, starting that one up. Day One's just going to be throwing a little bit of damage into that one. Proud's on a decent flank here to find an ultimate and hopefully bait AXZ out of position. Will they be able to burn the Drake down? That's going to be the Tempered Fate, stalling out that one. Corporal's alone with ones just to try and keep him CC'd up. Proud's going to be the one who actually gets a steal there as an arrow finds his way onto the Azir. The volley comes through and slows a couple members, but the wall will put a divide between them and victory. As now, back over the wall, Godaidu's making the call to go in. That's going to be Yu-Gi-Oh falling first, but the Solar Flare onto Proud is only going to buy them so much time as AXZ are in full retreat. That's going to be Ray knocking down Kennen. And then now AXZ's full retreat. They have an Azir turret to get to, but Corporal's not going to make it there in time. That's going to be Burning Core picking up a great team fight win after the Drake goes down and ultimately sniping it away with Proud. I believe he had an auto Q onto it that ended up sealing that deal. Now, we'll watch this one more time here. As Corporal makes a call to just kind of lock up once and hopefully buy his carry some time, but the taunt comes in, and Yu-Gi-Oh was the one that ended up actually giving them enough space that AXZ felt the need to retreat. And it wasn't until AXZ felt emboldened with seeing Unyon come in that they make the call to re-engage, and they get one. But at that point, their members are just too low to follow up. Beautiful, beautiful cleanup here by Ray to find the Q onto the Varus, and then follow through onto the Kennen as well. And this is sort of what we would have expected before we watched any of the previous games from today. Burning Core playing out the fights beautifully, and AXZ unfortunately stumbling a little bit around these objective fights. You do still have a decent amount of scaling that you will be able to fall back on, but you can't afford too big of a gold deficit, as well as you cannot afford this Kha'Zix getting much bigger, where if it gets to the point where it doesn't matter if you have isolation bonus and once is just blowing you up because he feels like it, things get a little bit scary for AXZ Gaming, and they will have a little bit of a lull state to enjoy in the meantime, while they wait for the next set of objectives to come up. Once is completing that Duskblade, which is a huge power spike for Kha'Zix specifically when you have the ultimate to reset your Duskblade procs. As AXZ are wandering around, they're trying to secure a bit of this Baron vision. If anyone is going to be burning down a Baron soon, it is AXZ, given the two carries that they have on their side, but likely won't be an objective of theirs very early on as Exhaust goes down. That's going to be a little bit of an all-in on from Yu-Gi-Oh, but is it one that he can entirely win out on? That's a second round of knock-up taunt. He is just going to find the solo kill onto Unyon. And once again, AXZ, the weak side lanes after the top lane swap, coming out here. Burning Core are the ones kind of dictating not only the pace of this game, but making AXZ look like the 0-8 AXZ, not the 1-8 AXZ that we saw in their game against Sengoku. We'll enjoy a little while longer of a lull state. A great solo kill to be picked up by Yu-Gi-Oh. Gets a couple of extra stacks on his Dark Seal, which is never a bad thing to look for. All of that being said, though, Burning Core still have a decent amount of the sort of pace in their favor. It will remain to be seen if AXZ can really hard engage on a fight that they need to find something here. But it will take Day One being a little bit less gun-shy about looking for engages. So they might just find ones here. Yeah, I was going to say throws the E, but should just be able to jump away from that one. One's not going to get locked up there for too long. And with this Mountain Drake coming up, both teams very happy to be stacking a couple Mountain Drakes. For AXZ, it might mean that that's a little extra time that once is not just blowing up any of your members. While for Burning Core, giving Ugeo a little bit of extra protection when he goes in and allowing Ray to be that much tankier of a front line. Not a bad deal at all, as Burning Core holding onto this inside track, starting up the Drake and clearing away the vision. Proud is going to be forced to Magical Voyage over this wall here. Does still have the Tempered Fate, so has opportunity to send it. But Union's the one waiting in the wings, and you can see some question pings coming out. They do know where Union is, as the far side's going to spot him, but that's going to be the Tempered Fate, finding two members. The hook from Ray Farkey will be enough to get him started up here, but the R's not going to kill. Will it be enough to get his passive going? Well, in the meantime, Ugio's going to throw down the ultimate to try and save once, while Union goes in. He's trying to find an engage, but it's too little too late, as the rest of AXZ are already routed. Mountain Drake over to Burning Core. These team fights are going up in burning flames, as BC can now look over towards the Baron opportunity in front of them. Proud is just staying in wait as a scout, seeing who he can spot on their way in, but this should be a fairly easily secured Baron for the side of Burning Core, and this could easily be their ticket to ending this game. If they can get enough of an advantage off of this Baron, it would mean soul for them, and hopefully would just be step one of, or just be one step of many to trying to end this game and hopefully take home their second win. Now, as we watch this fight again, it starts off in such a bad position, with the Tempered Fate just driving such a divide among the lines of AXZ, where Ray had all of the time in the world to beat up on the Leona, get his passive going, and start being more of a threat, all before Union was even able to get in over the wall. He had Flash available, but the Tempered Fate just controls so much zone that it never felt like the right time for Union to go in. And possibly what is their undoing for AXZ is the story of just being a little bit too gun-shy. If you're Union, you might as well be sending it there, because the situation already got bad. As speaking of bad, AXZ may have just found Yuhi in a bad spot alongside Ones, trying to see if he can clean up any kills. Not going to knock down day one there. And speaking of bad, Burning Core are the ones who seem to be having poor first Barons. As Ray's going to get found out alone here on the bottom side, they will be able to knock down the turret on that side of the map. Ray going to be picking up the gold for that one, but losing two of their members. As well as I know One's had a shutdown. I believe Yuhi had one as well. It's a little bit of gold you don't want to be giving back over to AXZ Gaming, but all of that being said, it's sort of the Burning Core way to have one bad Baron and then be able to roll back on the second one. And we'll see how things go for AXZ here. If they're able to find a couple more catches like that, it would be a nice deal. But ultimately, what they really need is to be able to set up the team fights exactly how they want. And they just don't have enough zone control to effectively do that, unless they're willing to start throwing out a couple of these ultimates, like the Chains of Corruption, or sending Garaidu in on a shuffle, all of which is just very risky. And the last thing AXZ can afford right now is a misstep. This Baron timing out, only netting about a 600 gold advantage to speak of for now. So a lot of that gold will be traded back with these minions anyway, so not the effective Baron power play that you're looking for if you are Burning Core, but we'll see where things go from here. And I do like that Ugio is picking up the Magi's here. Of all champions that are going to pick up a Magi specifically, Galio is one that benefits the most from it, as the extra move speed with W up is so effective for just finding multiple members, hopefully trying to win a team fight based off of taunting multiple members, which they did earlier this game even. Although at 6, he doesn't exactly have all the move speed in the world, and with Mountain Drake up right now, there's not a whole lot of time to get a couple more stacks. Teleport coming in, that's going to be Yu-Gi-Oh! Wandering around in the flanking position here. You can see some pings coming out. I don't believe AXZ saw him, as the Tempered Fate's going to come out. That's going to buy enough time. Yu-Gi-Oh! Thinking about flashing over the wall here, but meanwhile, on the front end of this fight, Ray Farkey's going to be going all in onto Corporal. Meanwhile, Proud forced out to the back of the fight. Yuhi at about a half HP, but has a free kill onto Corporal. Meanwhile, Once is just doing so much damage. He's going to find Garaidu solo on the other end of this map. While the last member, Hoglet's going to be falling there. And that's going to be Burning Core coming up with likely the game win here. Where I said earlier that maybe AXZ would be able to undo the multiple angle play that Burning Core like to induce, does not come up that way. Burning Core still set up their positions beautifully. They split the fight so far apart that all the team fighting tools in the world are not going to help you when you're not focusing the same targets, when you have no way to be focusing the same targets, because 2 members are in stasis, 2 members are being taunted up over here by a Galio, a couple members are over here getting run down by a Kha'Zix. And it looks like we'll be watching Yu-Gi-Oh! On the replay here once again. He teleports in, and so there's a lot of things to watch for in this fight, as Ray does such a good job frontlining here. The Tempered Fate comes in, and then you can just see Yu-Gi-Oh! Looking for his opportunity, flashes over the wall. He gets Garaidu going on the other end of the map, and then here comes Once, solo on the other side of things, where this fight didn't even involve him for the most part. Azir never had time to do damage. The whole time Azir was zoned by Tempered Fate, taunted up by Galio, and then jumped on by Kha'Zix. And even day 1 was forced to run away from Ray Farkey, who was just stacking up his bleed stacks. And that's the Darius way, really, is it does not matter if you're fed or ahead. Once he gets those bleed stacks going, he will start romping through team fights. And with the ghost buff, Darius is a champion that benefits immensely from it, because that's 1 kill, reset your move speed bonus, suddenly you're a menace that is sprinting at every one of the members of AXZ Gaming. 4-0-4 is a great position for him to find himself in. And with a Stone Blade to make sure he doesn't get bursted out too hard while he's stacking up his bleeds. Baron is on the table for Burning Core if they would like, but here comes Corporal sending out the ultimate there. It's going to be AXZ throwing everything on the line here. That's going to be the ultimate on the Garaidu. No longer will he be able to find the damage he wants to. As Hoglet gets stunned up here, Once is going to find his way onto Garaidu. The spell shield's going to knock away the wall, and Once should have a reset there. Nope, it didn't level E, but Flash is just going to be good enough. The W comes through as Burning Core will find a win. AXZ kind of knew that they needed to find a fight win, and Corporal decided he was going to lead the charge, and unfortunately, at this point, with a 10k gold disadvantage and fighting past Mountain Soul, it's just a bit too big of an ask for AXZ Gaming, as Burning Core are going to be finishing this week 2-0. While AXZ, you did pick up your first win, so don't hang your heads too low. But they will be going 1-1 as Burning Core pick up their second win. Tying up themselves in the split. That's going to be 5-5 as the record for Burning Core. They're going to finish out this week. And ultimately, not a bad look from Burning Core. I am really enjoying the way they're playing out a lot of these team fights and punishing these teams who, if you're not going to take a long enough engage range that you can follow up on, the fights just get picked apart in Burning Core's favor. We're going to be taking a quick break. I am going to try and stick it out for the next 4 games. I am going to try to do all 8 today. Chat, lend me your strength. As we wait for game 5 here, the next ones are going to be exciting, so you don't want to be missing out on these ones. We have V3 versus DFM coming up, as well as V3 versus CGA. Game 5 and 6, some hype ones that we're going to be looking forward to. Don't go anywhere. I will be back shortly.
ドラフトになんかこうもう関わってくるなっていう感じがするんですが、どうでしょう。いや、そろそろターゲットバンしたいなっていう感じはありますね。だから明日は使わせてもらえないんじゃないでしょうかね。枠足りますかね。結構厳しいですね。特にレッドサイドだと厳しいかもしれないですね。結構そのターゲットバーンもあるんですけど、そのまあメタ的に強いチャンピオンのバーンも結構今だと出てくるじゃないですか。そしてワンスのピックもありますからね。あとなんだかんだやっぱり営業選手のルリアカルマというのも結構捨ておけないので、ちょっと明日対戦するチームはバンピック悩むかもしれないですね。ただこうバーニングは今日のその2試合で見せたその相手に対しての攻め方っていうのはかなり豊富でしたね。特に両サイドから入っていったアクションっていうのはなかなかああいう難しいエンゲージってのは見ないですけどね。見ないですね。でその上で結局エンゲージするのがバードというところで、もうチームの息というのも非常に合ってましたよね。さあそれではインタビューの準備できたようです。見事勝利したバーニコーからプラウド選手のインタビュー準備できているということですので、下月さんお願いいたします。
はい、こちらバーニングコアのプラウド選手にお越しいただきました。よろしくお願いいたします。
よろしくお願いします。
まずは本日2勝で終えましたがいかがでしょうか。
먼저 오늘 2승으로 끝냈어요. 소감 어떠세요?
2승해갖고 너무 기쁩니다.
2勝できてとても嬉しいです。
ありがとうございます。それではイエガさんの方からお願いいたします。
はい、実はですね、プラウド選手あまりのうまさに、ちょっと驚きなんですけど、ここまで、ウィーク4までは1回もバードを使われてなかったんですよね。そんな中、今週このウィーク5になって2回バードを選択しました。プラウド選手の中でそのバードの評価っていうのはどんな感じなんでしょうか。
네, 오늘 프라우드 선수의 그 바드 픽에 대해서 물어볼 거예요. 그 위크 4까지 한 번도 쓰지 않았는데 오늘은 2번이나 선택했어요. 그 바드의 평가는 어떻게 되세요?
바드는 손에 따라서 차이가 천지 만지 차이라고 생각을 해서 저는 그냥 잘한다는 자신감 하나로 좋게 평가하고 있습니다.
자기가 잘하면이라는 거죠?
네.
네. バードはですね、使う人によってすごく評価が分かれてしまうと思うんですね。で、使い手がうまければということだと思うので、自分ではうまいと自信を持っているので、バードを使いました。
いやもう本当にまさにその言葉通り、何回もね素晴らしいエンゲージを決められてたと思うんですけれども、そのエンゲージちょっと結構バードって癖があって難しいチャンピオンかなと僕は思ってるんですけれども、うまく決める上で意識してることとかってありますか？
はい。오늘 정말 그 바드로 정말 훌륭한 그 플레이를 보여주셨는데요. 근데 바드 같은 경우에는 이니시가 약간 좀 어려운 챔프라고 생각해요. 그래서 이니시를 잘하는 방법 같은 거 뭔가 의식하는 부분이 있나요?
바드는 이니시 궁이 하나밖에 없기 때문에 잘 알면은 그냥 이속이 느린 챔프에 그냥 막 눌러야 돼요. 궁을 머리 위에. 그거 아니면 다른 챔프는 다 안 맞기 때문에 챔프 머리 위에 누르면 됩니다.
네. バードは、エンゲージをする方法っていうのはウルトしかないんですよね。なので、相手のチャンピオンのこう頭の上にですね、ウルトしっかり打つっていうのがポイントになってくると思います。
相手の位置をしっかりと見てってことなんですね。もうそこに対して打っていくというのが大事だと。なんかそう言われてもなかなか難しいなっていう気がするんですけれど、なるほど。ちょっとじゃあ今度意識してやってみたいと思います。ありがとうございます。
ありがとうございます。それでは最後に本日応援してくださった皆さんに一言お願いいたします。
그러면 마지막으로 오늘 응원해주신 팬분들한테 한마디 부탁드립니다.
팬미팅은 한 번도 없어서 팬이 있는지 없는지 잘 모르겠지만 있다고 저는 생각을 하고 항상 응원해주셔서 감사합니다.
네. ファンミーティングを今シーズンちょっと一度もやれていないので、ファンの人が本当にいるのかっていうのがちょっとよくわからないんですけれども、いると仮定してですね、いつも応援してくださってありがとうございます。
はい、ありがとうございます。バーニングコアのプラウド選手でした。それでは次の試合までインターバルです。
コールモーションには入っていますが、し 掛けに行った怪我の良さと同時、ただしこれはクレンズハイダートにしたが決まった。青年旅路なんとかクラッシュインで間に合った。ただホグレット乗ってしまった。誘い込まれた。ただしアルティメットで逃げようとはしましたが、ワンスが追撃。ファーストブラッド獲得。バーニンコアさあどこを狙う。おっとブルートリンケットでウニャに打ちバレた。デイワンとホグレットが捕まっています。さあどうする。ただしそのままコーポラルを捕まえるような形か。レイファーキーに仕掛けに、ただしそのままサポートは一気にダウン。そしてプラウドの CC によってレートキャリー2人がほとんど動けない状態だ。ウニャはアルティメットでなんとか返してはいますが、キルには届かない。
CC を相手にしっかりと当てていくというのが大事になってくるんですが、ユヒ選手クレンズ持っているのでなかなか狙いづらいという中で、
おっとガリアル仕掛けていった。そのままスネアで捕まえて、まずはユヒを落としきった。さあただしワンスはどうだ。
素晴らしい。
あわやというシーンでしたが、キルされずに落としきることに成功。これで2キルを獲得。アクシズウゲを左からワンス、そして運命の調律。ウィニャンで今捕まえた。すぐさまアルティメットやテレポートでガリアルが寄ってきます。なんとか前線でホグレットのコープラが耐えている。そして後ろからやってきた営業はガリアルが一度アルティメットに宣言。そしてワンスがやってくるぞ。で今はダウン。さあそしてガリアルに飛びついたワンス、一気に体力を9割から10割持っていった。そしてなんとレイファーキーがトリプルキルからのクワドラキルだ。エース獲得。バーニンコア
このシチュエーション、アクシズとしては結構レイファーキー選手を狙うというのも手ではあるんですが、
これですね。いやそれぐらいスタンにはなっていない。ホグレットがなんとかスタンをかけてレイファーキーを削りたいんですが、後衛の火力が届いていない。アルティメットを使ってホグレットを対戦。そこに対してユーヒしっかりとアローを当てて、そして前線のまず1人を倒しきった。ユーニャテレポート、いやアルティメットを使ってはいるんですがどうにもできない。そしてワンス止まらない。いや最後は W でしっかりとガリアルも仕留めきってダブルキル。そしてノーデッドでエース獲得です。
レイファーキー選手ガーゴイル持ってるんですよ。
それによって倒しきれませんでしたね。さああとはネクサスを残すのみです。タイマー間に合わないでしょう。さあそのままネクサスの破壊に向かいます。さあバーニンコアスーパーウィークのまずはこの初戦、そして2試合目もしっかりと抑えて勝利しました。